guys? You ready for a Mick?
When you look at the Chargers defensively, what kind of stands out to you in terms of what they're doing over there?
Yeah, the Chargers. I mean, look, they're a well-coached, fast defense that swarm the football. They force a lot of fumbles. Obviously, keeps them in games. They've done a good job with that recently. Forced turnovers. They really make you earn every inch. Like I said, they're coached really hard by Brandon Staley. Very strong defensive background, and I would say just overall team speed. They got good players on all ends, whether it's Khalil Mack, Derwin James, Tranquill, linebacker. Those guys, there's all levels of defense. They have guys who can make plays in the football and get after, whether it's the quarterback, the pass game or run game.
Seems like centuries ago that you guys played them. It feels like that,
Yeah.
And you guys have changed.
Sure.
Since then, how would you say that you guys have changed since that first meeting?
I think every 32 teams in the NFL have changed for sure. I think whether it's due to injuries or just due to finding your identity, and it's funny. It's a great question because you go back every year and it's the same thing. You think you've kind of your team by the end of camp, and you feel comfortable doing things, and you feel like this is going to be a certain area we're going to excel in. This is really one of our weaknesses, and then as the year goes on, you learn so much more about not only the team but yourself and what you like to do and what this guy's good at, or what he needs help at, and there's just a growing process, and I think that's really important moving throughout the season, just as a coaching staff and as a team, and just learning, hey, we have to evaluate each week and then keep moving forward and try and get better, whether it's the bye week or just a normal week, on a daily basis. So that's growth, and I think that's just important part of the NFL season.
Sunday against the Seahawks, you kind of saw Zamir White getting a couple of runs
Yeah.
in there. Of course, we're not going to talk about Josh Jacobs' situation, but how do you continue to prepare Zamir White moving forward for, if or when those opportunities come about?
Yeah, Zamir has done I think I mentioned last week, you guys asked about Josh. He's done a great job of preparing and being ready to go, and Coach Kennedy does a great job at that. Not only Coach Kennedy, but the running back room. It's really a tight-knit room. They all hold each other accountable, and they really want to make sure that they're all prepared and ready to go, because you never know when your time's going to get called upon. Like in the game in Seattle, Josh was carrying the ball and needed a blow. So Zamir got in there and didn't change what we were doing on offense, and he got a couple of touches and took advantage of them. So credit to him, credit to Amir doing the same thing on third down, catching touchdown pass. He's really kind of excelled in his role on a third down sub role, and just those guys all just really pitching in. Brandon Bolden 2 weeks ago got in there in a couple situations. So I think the accountability factor from the room and just from Coach Kennedy and just the whole offense is really something that helps Zamir grow as a young player.
Two questions. First,
Yeah.
Offense, in my opinion, your offensive line. I think that was the best performance of the season. I obviously haven't seen your internal grades, but is that pretty accurate?
I obviously can't excel on the grades, but we can always improve on some areas for sure.
For the season, did you think that was the best performance your
I
offense?
thought the offensive line, look, when you win a game in overtime and you rush for a certain number of yards and throw for some yards, I thought the offensive line, fought and battled. When you have 80 plays, those guys are going to get tired and they're going to have to battle. So we didn't stop running the football. They did a good job. You weren't rushed the ball 40 times. They're going to get downhill, have some contact. And then obviously I thought they did a really good job in protection. Derek, was only sacked, I think, one time, and he was pretty much upright for most of the game. And that's credit to those guys. Staying inside out, following the fundamentals. But to answer your question, yes, I thought the offensive line performed very well. And they obviously, it was a tough environment down there in Seattle with the snap count and making sure they had, get off the football. And those guys battled, did a great job.
Secondarily, Derek is normally very protective of the football. So for a guy like him to throw 2 quick interceptions, what does it speak to his mentality? He just kept firing, had a short memory.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it speaks to the entire team's mentality. You throw an interception, the first play of the game, it's gonna challenge your mental toughness. And then you go out there, and then we got the ball and scored on the next series, touchdown, but then gave a turnover in the following series. So, how we handle that not only as an offense but as a defense, as a kicking unit, is big, and it speaks to a lot of the guys in terms of just, hey, next play mentality moving forward, especially Derek, the skill guys in offense, the offensive line. But it's really a team thing, because when, obviously when you're on the sideline and something good happens on defense, you kind of have some energy on offense. And then when something bad happens on offense, I'm sure the defense feels like, okay, we got to step up a little bit and make a play. So the defense did that a number of times on Sunday, which was great, helped us tremendously. And, obviously the mental toughness of the team was, what I was really pleased with.
We know what Devontae is going to do. He's always going to be ready to catch the ball. But other guys like Keelan Cole 2 weeks in a row, late
No
in the
doubt.
game, has come up with a catch.
Absolutely.
Foster. What does it say to those guys always being ready?
Have to be ready, because, again, you never know. The coverage is going to dictate where the ball is going to go. not the plan, because we really, we hope for a certain coverage and we might get something different. So Derek has to do a good job of going through his progression, and then each player has to go do a good job of running their route. You saw the same thing happen with Foster on the touchdown, and then Keelan Cole, key third down, back-to-back weeks. He runs a great route, gets open, and Derek finds him because that's where his read brought him, and we convert a first down, which is really, really, really something special, because you never know when that time's going to come in the game, and obviously, guys have done a good job of taking advantage of that moving forward.
Coach Amir Abdullah has really tackled that third down role. What have you seen from him up to this point in his progress, being able to pass pro, but also being a threat, I guess, out of the flat?
You say Amir?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the first thing that starts with the pass protection. I can't overemphasize how important that is in terms of being a running back in the NFL. And I think our backs do a great job of that, and Coach Kennedy works really hard with them at that. So he's really mastered that, not only just from a fundamental standpoint, but from a schematic standpoint. So really, once he's matched with that, and then obviously getting in the passing game, the first third down conversion of the game was a target to him, and then he caught the touchdown pass in the red zone, which he's growing as a player in our offense in the passing game, like everybody, like Keelan Cole is. At every certain position, taking the fundamentals in terms of the route technique, whether that's from the backfield or split out wide. And that's just really a big part of just growing, and evolution starts back with the first part of the season, to your question earlier. Some guys aren't as comfortable doing certain things, only with 6 weeks of practice in camp. But then as the season goes on, there's time on task and more repetitions and understanding of coverages and taking the technique to the practice field. I think that's really kind of the evolution part of it, and Amir's been a victim of that.
When you, not to ask for any secrets, but approaching a week like this, and it's really 2 weeks in one almost, with the game coming up on Thursday.
Yeah.
How does that workload kind of manifest for the coaching staff?
Well, that's the first thing you got to do is you got to focus on the one this week. That's the most important one. This is the next one. So we'll do a good job of that this week, and then, just turn the page quickly and try and get on to the next opponent, which is the Rams. But, I would say as a coaching staff, it's just one of those things where you say goodbye to your wife and kids for a few days and just kind of plow on through, So I think that's the most important thing, is just focus on the next one in hand, which is the Chargers. And, we'll have a normal week this week and be ready to go on Sunday.
Is there any additional challenge, not, overlooking the Chargers whatsoever, but, when it's a team that you're not as familiar with in the Rams, does that make it a little bit more challenging? Or
yeah, the good part about that is they have the same number of days and the same thing we have to go through. So I would say the playing field's equal. So obviously every game planning for any team is a challenge, whether you know them or don't know them. So we just got to try and do our best job to kind of get familiar with them on a quick basis.
It was good.
Good, guys? Okay. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, man.
Thanks very much.
Artillery, such a pressure from that inside this week. I know it's something you've wanted. What was it? Was there anything special that happened before the week that you saw them make the switch, or was it something that the process you talk about finally got them there?
I think those guys, I know those guys work really hard and just been trying to improve their pass rush. And, Coach made a big emphasis for Seattle in terms of let's get in the middle of the pocket and get in Geno's face. And those guys went out and executed one of the musts for the game. And, it wasn't every play, but we had enough plays where they were in Geno's face. And that's one of the musts that Coach identified that we needed to do to win the game. And as you can see, 2 weeks in a row, guys are trying to hit the must as much as possible. And, we were able to execute it.
What's the challenge in defending a Justin Herbert?
The run pass option, and really, he's a quarterback. Let's just say that. He could throw the ball. He could throw it to any part of the field. Great arm strength. You see the intelligence in terms of getting in and out of plays. You see that, and then obviously once you start getting some years under you, he's seen a bunch of looks. The experience comes, and you got to make sure you're disguising certain looks. And so, just the growth of a young quarterback with all the physical skills and the mental capability is tough. And then on top of that, when he gets in trouble, he can make plays with his feet. And still, again, it's not like he's just running just for the sake of running. He's running to throw the ball down the field or running to get first down. So it's a difficult challenge just because of all the things that, that come along with the physical, the mental, and then with the experience.
What's the level of merit in looking at what happened in the first game? Or is that just you're done with that?
No, you definitely go back and look at the first game. You go back and look at last year's game with the Giants. You go back, you're trying to gather as much information as possible. They're doing the same thing, I would assume. And you're just trying to, from there, formulate the best game plan in terms of who they have now, who they're playing with now, and then go from there.
Coach, I know it wasn't perfect, but did it feel like the players defensively felt like they had an understanding of what you wanted them to do a little bit more on Sunday?
Now, I want to say it a little bit more. I mean, just again, sometimes the ball bounces the wrong way, but the guys have been working really hard all year. They've been working really hard all year. I think Coach talked about it in his press conference. The temperature really hasn't changed. The guys have been focused. Just some breaks here and there. I think the one thing, like Coach said, they're learning how to play together. Both all three phases. Learning how to gut it out for a full 60 or 65 minutes, whatever it may take. And I'm just happy that they're getting the reward. And again, now we got to reset, come back in tomorrow and get ready to go for the Chargers because big division game, a big challenge ahead of us, a home game, give the fans something to cheer about there with that. But we're, I know the guys they've been working hard all year and focused, and I know that right now their attentions have turned to the Chargers.
Broncos, they really focused in on Sam Webb a week before, and looked like he kind of struggled, and then it looked like he played a heck of a game against Seattle on Sunday. How did you see him bounce back as a young guy?
Just, everybody bounces back from their past experiences. I think, you learn from some of the best learning I've had has been from defeats, in terms of, I remember my first game as a coordinator. I mean, you could look it up. I mean, it's about as embarrassing as it gets. Definitely not how I saw it going. Definitely not how I saw it going. And, I learned from that. And, but, again, we all learn from our experiences. And, they're football players, we're coaches. We get paid to do something. And, again, we got to bounce back. It's a week-to-week league, and that's what we have to do.
Coach, can you talk about Denzel Perryman? He's a guy that's really been the heart and soul of the defense, aside from Max Crosby and a few others. But specifically when he's in the game, it seems like you guys can do a lot of different things, especially in run support.
I think the thing about Denzel that stands out, he's fast, he's physical, willing to hit. He's a football player, in terms of just, wants to go out there and be physical. So those are all things that as a defensive coach, and I'm sure as any coach on the staff, they appreciate that. You want the game. You can't get away from the physicality of the game. No matter how much, they glorify the finesse part of it, the physicality of the game, it always comes down to that, especially once you start heading into November, December. The most physical teams are the teams that keep moving forward. So, when you have a guy that's physical like that can make a difference, that could dent the O-line, that can make some plays in the backfield, it's always important. And obviously, production also leads to some excitement, and that also leads to guys, rallying around that. So that's always a good thing.
Thanks, Coach.
You guys all set?
Man, that was smooth.